My husband told me the family trip was canceled because money was tight. We'd be staying home that year. I believed him and worked through the weekend. Later, I saw his sister's post. A big dinner. Everyone there except me. I said nothing. Then he texted, "Need $2,800. It's urgent." I replied, "Ask your family." After that, I stopped paying and started healing. "Need $2,800. It's urgent." Henry's message lit up my phone while I stood in the hospital supply closet, surrounded by boxes of gauze and the sharp smell of antiseptic. 3 days earlier, he'd said the family lake trip was off because we couldn't afford it. 3 days earlier, I'd believed him and signed up for weekend shifts. But 2 hours ago, I saw Melissa's Instagram post. Everyone at the lake, glasses raised over a full spread. My husband was there, smiling in the corner of the photo. Now he wanted the monthly payment for his mother's mortgage. My thumbs moved quickly across the screen. "Ask your family." The phone rang right away. I let it buzz 3 times before declining the call. Another nurse needed the closet, so I grabbed the box I'd come for and stepped back into the fluorescent rush of the ICU. I still had 4 hours left in my shift, but my marriage had just ended in 5 words. It hadn't always been about money. 7 years ago, Henry and I stood in a courthouse wearing our best clothes, his borrowed suit and my mother's altered dress, promising to share everything. We laughed about our $300 wedding, saying love was free, and that was all that mattered. His family had seemed warm back then. Nancy brought casseroles to our apartment. Robert helped us move used furniture. Melissa called me sister and sounded like she meant it, or so I thought. Before I go on, if you believe honesty and trust are the foundation of any marriage, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps others who faced similar betrayal. The financial drain began slowly, so quietly I didn't notice at first. It started with Nancy casually mentioning that the lake house property taxes had gone up. Over coffee in my kitchen, she sighed, "Maybe we should sell it." But all those memories of Henry growing up there. I looked at Henry, saw his face fall, and heard myself say we could help, just for this year until things improved. Nancy hugged me with tears in her eyes, calling me the daughter she never had. The first check was $500, then $1,000, then somehow $2,800 every month, without any real discussion. Henry managed it all, assuring me his parents were recovering financially and would repay us soon. 3 weeks ago, Nancy came over with her famous apple pie, the one she only made when she wanted something big. As we ate off mismatched plates, she talked about the dock repairs, thanked us again, and said she bragged at church about her generous daughter-in-law. "Not many girls your age understand family loyalty," she said, patting my hand. Her diamond ring, upgraded to 2 carats for their 30th anniversary, sparkled in the light. I glanced at my small engagement ring, telling myself it didn't matter. The conversation that changed everything happened at our wobbly kitchen table, the one we'd found on the curb and painted white. Henry sat across from me, turning his ring, avoiding my eyes. "The lake trip's off this year," he said, voice heavy with practiced disappointment. "Money's too tight, maybe next summer." I reached for his hand, feeling the roughness from his golf clubs, the expensive set his father gave him that he used every weekend to network for a consulting job that never brought income. "We'll get through this," I said. "I'll pick up some extra shifts." He smiled with that familiar boyish grin, the same one that made me fall for him in college, when we had nothing but dreams and instant noodles. "Thanks for understanding," he said. "Mom and Dad will be disappointed, but they'll understand." I pictured Nancy's face, imagined her sadness over missing the yearly family gathering, and guilt settled in my stomach as I logged into the hospital system and accepted weekend shifts I'd previously declined. 12-hour days Saturday and Sunday, time and a half pay, to help with expenses while his family struggled. That Friday morning, Henry was more affectionate than usual. He made me the good coffee, not our regular store brand, and watched me get ready. When I grabbed my bag packed with protein bars and noodles for my 48-hour stretch, he pulled me close, hands warm on my shoulders. "Lauren," he said softly, his eyes bright with something I couldn't name. "Thank you for being supportive. I know this isn't easy." "We're married," I said. "Your family is my family." He kissed me longer than usual, fingers in my hair. When he pulled away, there was something unreadable in his face. Maybe guilt, maybe stress. "I love you," he whispered. "Love you too," I said, already thinking whether to splurge on a $4 hospital coffee. Now, standing in the ICU with my phone dark in my pocket, I finally understood that look. It hadn't been stress, love, or even guilt. It had been goodbye. Henry had been saying farewell to the wife he was about to deceive, to the trust he was about to destroy, and to the version of me who would have done anything for his family. That moment in the supply closet kept replaying in my mind as I continued my shift. Just 2 hours earlier, everything had made sense. 2 hours earlier, I had been exhausted, but proud, working extra hours to support what I thought was our struggling family. Now, every detail looked different. Every transfer, every sacrifice, every weekend shift while they gathered at the lake without me. $2,800 a month for 3 years. The ICU halls stretched endlessly as I pushed through the remainder of my shift. That text exchange burning in my pocket like a live ember. Every patient I treated, every IV I placed, every chart I updated. My body moved automatically, guided by routine, while my mind spun in disbelief. Saturday came too soon. I'd slept no more than 5 restless hours on our uneven mattress, alone. Henry hadn't come home. Or maybe he had and left again. His pillow still held the same untouched dent from Thursday night. I dressed in clean scrubs, grabbed my work bag, and drove back to St. Mary's for another long shift. The trauma bay erupted just 20 minutes after I clocked in. The ambulance radios crackled. Multi-vehicle collision on I-75. At least 6 cars involved, multiple criticals. We had 3 minutes to prepare before the first patient arrived. The first stretcher burst through the automatic doors, carrying a teenager, maybe 16, unconscious and bleeding from a head wound. I grabbed the side rail and helped wheel him into trauma room 3 as the paramedic called out vitals. Behind us, sirens screamed closer. "Lauren, I need you in here," Dr. Martinez called, already gowned and focused. We worked quickly to stabilize the boy. Within minutes, blood had seeped through my gloves, turning them deep red. From the hallway, his mother's screams carried toward us, but protocol kept her outside. For the next 6 hours, I didn't think about Henry at all. Emergencies have a way of narrowing your world to the present moment. Insert this, check vitals, comfort the family, move to the next case. The teenager survived, barely. His mother collapsed against me when we finally let her in, crying and thanking me through tears that soaked my scrubs. I held her, told her that her son was strong and would recover, even as my own world quietly broke inside. When I finally got a break, it was after 7 in the evening. The cafeteria had closed, so I settled for a vending machine sandwich and weak coffee, sitting in the staff break room. My feet throbbed inside my compression socks. 12 hours down, 12 more to go the next day. I checked my phone. No messages from Henry, but there was a notification from Melissa's Instagram story, posted 4 hours ago. Against my better judgment, I tapped it. The video loaded slowly on the hospital Wi-Fi. It opened with the lake at sunset, golden light shimmering across the water. Melissa's voice filled my earbuds. Perfect family weekend, so blessed to have everyone together. The camera panned to champagne glasses clinking in a toast, then across a long table under twinkling string lights loaded with food, a glazed ham in the center, corn on the cob, potato salad, coleslaw, and what looked like Nancy's peach cobbler. Then came the faces. Nancy, in a new coral sundress, her freshly dyed blonde hair catching the light. Robert by the grill, spatula in one hand, beer in the other. Jake with a woman I didn't recognize, his girlfriend of 8 months, too shy to meet me before. Brian, Henry's old college roommate, who had driven 3 hours for this canceled trip. And then, in the corner of the frame, for just 2 seconds, Henry, my husband, raising his beer toward the camera, his wedding ring flashing in the sunset. He wore the Tommy Bahama shirt I'd given him last Christmas, the one he said was too nice for everyday wear. His face looked relaxed, content, no sign of worry, no guilt, no thought of the wife working overtime 40 minutes away. I watched the video again, then again, 17 times. Each replay revealed more details that cut deeper. The craft beer in Henry's hand, Stone Brewing IPA, $15 a six-pack. We'd stopped buying it months ago. Nancy's dress still had the Nordstrom tag showing when she turned to hug someone. The table was set with their fine china. A Seine set, she said, was too fragile for regular use. Jake's girlfriend wore a tennis bracelet that caught the light. Brian poured from an expensive bottle of wine. Even the corn holders were new, shaped like tiny corn cobs. The ones Nancy had ordered from Williams-Sonoma last summer. My coffee grew cold as I studied each frame. This wasn't a casual last-minute dinner. It had been planned, organized. The ham alone would have taken hours to prepare. Nancy's hair appointment must have been booked weeks earlier. The new string lights were high-end, not the cheap ones from Target. They had all known. Every person in that video had known they were attending this canceled trip while I was working double shifts. My hands trembled as I closed Instagram and opened our banking app. I needed to see it clearly, to understand the full scale of it. There they were, 36 months of transfers, $2,800 on the first of each month, some labeled family support, others property tax help, a few marked emergency fund. $100,800 in total. This time, I did the math differently. That money could have cleared my student loans, bought us a reliable car, or funded real vacations, ones we both attended. It could have replaced our peeling linoleum, fixed our wobbling table, and furnished our home with pieces not found at curbs or garage sales. Sunday's shift started at 7 a.m. I'd managed only 3 restless hours of sleep in an on-call room, unwilling to drive home just to return again. My reflection in the bathroom mirror said everything. Tired eyes, pale skin, the face of someone surviving on exhaustion and disappointment. The day passed in a blur. More patients, more emergencies, more families to comfort, while my own life quietly unraveled. Around noon, Dr. Martinez pulled me aside, concern marking his expression. "You okay, Mitchell? You seem off today." "Just tired," I replied, using my maiden name out of habit. He'd known me before Henry, back when I was Lauren Mitchell, a nursing student full of optimism. Weekend shifts catching up. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Take a proper break. Doctor's orders. 30 minutes. No phone, no charts." By 6 p.m., I was back in the break room, same chair, same view of the parking lot. When I opened Instagram, new posts appeared. Melissa had uploaded more from their weekend. This time, the photos were professional, filtered to perfection. One showed the entire family lined up by the dock, arms wrapped around each other, lake water sparkling behind them. Henry stood between his parents, smiling broadly. The timestamp read, Saturday, 2:47 p.m. When I had been holding a mother whose son nearly died in the trauma bay. I closed Instagram and drove home through empty Sunday streets. It was 11 p.m., and the city felt deserted. My 8-year-old Honda wheezed at stoplights, the check engine light flashing as usual. We couldn't afford repairs, or so I'd been told. The radio played a song about trust and love. I turned it off, choosing silence instead. When I reached our apartment complex, Henry's car wasn't there. No surprise. He was likely still at the lake, relaxing after his canceled weekend. I climbed the 2 flights to our unit, my legs heavy. Inside, the apartment was dark, untouched since Friday. His coffee mug still sat by the sink, unwashed. The bed was neatly made, just as I'd left it. I sank onto our second-hand couch, still in scrubs, too tired to shower, but too restless to sleep. The weekend looped in fragments. The trauma bay, the mother's tears, Melissa's video, those 36 months of payments. My phone remained silent. No messages from Henry. Not even a simple, "How's your shift?" or "Drive safe." Monday morning arrived with precision. At 7 a.m., I heard his key in the lock. I sat at the kitchen table with my first cup of coffee as Henry walked in carrying a paper bag from the expensive bakery downtown and 2 coffees. "Hey, babe," he said cheerfully, setting everything down. His skin carried a faint tan, the kind earned from a weekend in the sun. "Brought breakfast. Thought you'd be hungry after your shifts. Fresh bagels, cream cheese, even lox. At least $30 worth of food for our supposedly tight budget." He slid a coffee toward me, then leaned in to kiss my cheek. I didn't pull away, but I didn't lean in either. "How was your weekend?" he asked, settling into his chair with practiced calm. "Brutal," I said, sipping my coffee. "Oat milk, extra shot, just how I like it." "Tough weekend, huh? I'm sorry you had to work," he said casually, spreading cream cheese on his bagel. "I mostly just caught up on reports, did some work on the balcony, got a bit of sun." He gestured at his face with a laugh. "Forgot sunscreen again." The balcony, our tiny balcony that barely caught sunlight for an hour a day. I nodded, watching sesame seeds scatter across the table as he ate. "Your mom texted," I lied smoothly. "Said she needs the payment today." Henry didn't hesitate. "Oh, right, yeah, the first already. I'll handle the transfer after my shower." He stretched, yawning. "God, I'm sore. Must have slept funny. Or spent the weekend water skiing." I thought but stayed quiet. He headed to the bathroom, already pulling off his shirt. The water started, followed by his off-key singing, a pop song from the radio. He only sang like that when completely relaxed, when life was good, when he had nothing to worry about. I opened our laptop and logged into our joint bank account. The history appeared slowly. 3 years of transactions listed line by line. I'd checked before, but never this carefully. Not with the knowledge that every payment was a lie. January through December, 3 years straight, $2,800 on the first of each month. Some labeled mom's mortgage, others property tax help, a few medical expenses, and several simply family support. I took screenshots of every transfer, methodically organizing them by date and amount. My phone became an evidence folder. The shower shut off. Henry would be out in 5 minutes. He was nothing if not predictable. I opened a new browser tab, created a cloud storage account under my maiden name, and uploaded everything. The folder name was simple: Truth. By the time Henry stepped out, hair damp and smelling of his expensive shampoo, I was calmly sipping coffee, scrolling through my phone as if nothing had happened. "I'm heading to the office," he said, grabbing his messenger bag. "Client meeting at 9. "Which client?" I asked. That so-called consulting business that never seemed to generate any real income had crossed my mind, but I just nodded, playing the supportive wife one more time. Tuesday went by in an odd sense of normalcy. By Wednesday, Henry behaved as if nothing was wrong, and I matched his act. We had dinner, watched TV, and talked about simple things like groceries and whether we should renew Netflix. He mentioned his parents were doing better financially and might not need our help much longer. I responded with polite agreement, while calculating how much time I'd wasted believing his lies. Thursday changed everything. I was in the hospital cafeteria eating a plain salad because the better options were too expensive for someone funding her in-laws' lifestyle. My phone buzzed with a text from Henry. "Babe, need $2,800 today. Mom's mortgage is due. Urgent. Can you transfer?" I stared at the message while the usual chaos of the hospital unfolded around me. Alarms beeping, doctors being paged, real emergencies happening all around. My thumbs moved with clinical precision as I typed 5 words. Ask your family. Within seconds, the phone rang. Henry's name flashed on the screen, and I could practically sense his panic. Leaving my unfinished salad behind, I walked to the nearest supply closet, the only private place available. What's that supposed to mean? His voice was strained, the confidence gone. I closed the door, surrounded by boxes of gauze and the sharp scent of antiseptic. It means I saw Melissa's video, I said evenly. The one from your family trip to the lake. The trip that supposedly got canceled. The silence that followed was absolute, like the pause between heartbeats on a monitor. Lauren, you don't understand, Henry's voice cracked, panic rising. I understand perfectly, I cut him off. I've been paying your family's bills for 3 years while being excluded from the family itself. I was good enough to cover your mother's mortgage, but not good enough to sit at the table with you all. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Henry? Explain how it's not exactly what it looks like. His breathing grew uneven. The supply closet felt smaller with each word. A nurse knocked on the door. She needed supplies. I had to end it. Lauren, please let me explain when you get home. I can't, I said. Some of us have actual emergencies to handle, not fabricated ones. I hung up, handed the nurse what she needed, and went back to work. 6 more hours of real problems, real people, real consequences, not the drama waiting for me at home. When I finally walked into our apartment at 8 p.m., I thought I'd entered the wrong place. Candles were everywhere. On the table, the windowsills, even the bookshelf. The lights were off, the room glowing gold. Our dining table was set with our wedding china, the set that usually stayed boxed above the fridge. The smell of garlic and basil. Sit, he said, pulling out my chair. Please let me explain. I sat, not out of interest, but exhaustion and curiosity about how far this performance would go. He poured wine with trembling hands and served the pasta with the precision of a cooking show contestant. Everyone feels awful, he started, sitting across from me. Mom's been crying all day. She never meant to hurt you. I nudged a piece of pasta across my plate. The sauce was perfect, rich, balanced, wasted. Your mom's been crying, I repeated flatly. The same woman who just took another $2,800 of my money? She didn't know I hadn't told you about the trip. She assumed. She assumed what? That I'd be too busy working to notice? That's what I always do, right? Work while you all enjoy the life I pay for. Henry reached for my hand. I pulled away. We thought it'd be easier, he said. You hate big gatherings. You're always saying how draining they are after work. I say I'm tired, Henry. That doesn't mean I want to be left out, especially while funding the event. It wasn't about money. It's always about money. I took a sip of wine. Good wine, probably charged to our already strained credit card. Your family has taken over $100,000 from us, while I've been patching scrubs and driving a car that barely starts. That's an exaggeration. I have the records, Henry. Every transfer, every month, every lie. Want to see? Something shifted in his face then, the calm mask slipping just enough to reveal fear or calculation. They're my parents, Lauren. Family helps family. Apparently I'm not family, I said quietly. The silence stretched between us, broken only by the soft hiss of a candle. Henry's jaw tensed as if searching for words. Mom wants to talk to you, he said finally. She feels terrible about the misunderstanding. The misunderstanding? I repeated, as if this was just a minor mix-up about dinner plans and not years of financial manipulation and emotional exclusion. She can call me herself, I said, standing up. But I'm done sending money, and I'm done with this conversation. I left Henry sitting there among his candles, pasta, and rehearsed remorse. Friday morning, Nancy's call came as I was getting dressed for work. Seeing her name on my phone made my stomach tighten, but I answered, putting her on speaker while I pulled on my scrubs. Lauren, sweetheart, she began, her voice dripping with that practiced Southern sweetness. This whole thing has gotten so out of hand. Has it? I kept my voice calm, professional. "We thought you were working, dear. Henry said you'd picked up extra shifts. We didn't want to make you feel bad about missing family time." I tied my shoes slowly, letting her words sit in the air. "So instead of inviting me and letting me decide, you lied to me. That was the kinder option?" "We didn't lie," she insisted weakly. "Henry told me the trip was canceled. Was that true, Nancy?" Silence, clear, heavy, and telling. "The money you send, it's not about that," she started again. "We're grateful, of course, but family is about more than money." "I agree," I said, standing and checking my reflection. "Which is why I'm confused about being excluded from family events I'm paying for." "Lauren, please. The house, the mortgage, we could lose everything." "Maybe sell one of the boats," I suggested lightly. "Or ask the family members who actually got invited. The real family." "You don't mean that." "I do. The transfers stop now. If you need help, ask your family. The ones in those pictures." I hung up before she could respond. Within 3 hours, the social media backlash began. Melissa, Henry's sister, the one who posted the vacation videos, started with vague quotes on Instagram stories. "Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you need them most." Then another. "Some people will never understand sacrifice." By lunchtime, she escalated. A photo of the lake house appeared with a long caption. "This place holds every memory, every celebration, every moment that mattered. Real family understands what's worth fighting for. Others just see dollar signs." The comments were brutal. Cousins I'd never met called me heartless. Aunts who'd never invited me to anything labeled me selfish. Someone named Barbara, probably Nancy's church friend, wrote a long paragraph about young people not understanding family values. I screenshotted everything before Melissa blocked me, adding it all to my growing archive of proof. That weekend, more messages appeared, this time from Jake, Henry's younger brother. Henry had left his phone on the kitchen counter while showering, maybe by accident or maybe on purpose. The screen lit up with message after message. "Your wife is ruining everything. Mom can't stop crying. Dad says you made your choice. Maybe you picked wrong, brother." I photographed every one of them calmly. More documentation, more truth. When Henry came out of the bathroom and saw me near his phone, he grabbed it quickly. "Jake's upset," he said, as if that explained everything. "Jake's been unemployed for 2 years," I replied. Maybe he should be upset about that instead. By Monday, I'd made up my mind. During lunch, I drove across town to a credit union I'd found online, a different bank, one Henry couldn't access. The woman assisting me had kind brown eyes and silver-streaked hair. Her nameplate read Patricia. "I'd like to open a checking account," I said, just in my name. Patricia didn't ask why. Maybe she could tell, or maybe she'd helped other women do the same. She handled everything smoothly and without judgment. "Will you be making a deposit today?" she asked. I handed her my overtime check. $800 from the weekend Henry's family spent at the lake. The irony wasn't lost on me. That money, earned while they relaxed, became the first deposit in what I quietly called my freedom fund. Patricia handed me a plain blue debit card. It wasn't special, but it felt like holding a key to my own life. I slipped it into a pocket Henry never checked, behind my hospital ID. That evening, while Henry watched TV, I logged into my hospital's HR system and changed my direct deposit details. From the next pay cycle onward, my salary would go directly into my account. Mine alone. "What are you working on?" Henry asked during a commercial. "Just updating some work stuff," I replied casually. He nodded and turned back to the show. Dr. Chen greeted me warmly. She was younger than I expected, early 40s, with gentle eyes behind modern glasses. Her office felt calm, soft lighting, comfortable chairs, tissues placed within reach. "What brings you here today, Lauren?" she asked once I sat down. The words poured out, 3 years of payments, lies, and gaslighting. The family trips I'd paid for, but never attended. The manipulation disguised as obligation. By the time I finished, half the tissue box was gone, but my chest felt lighter than it had in years. Dr. Chen listened quietly, occasionally nodding or jotting a small note, giving me space to finally breathe. When I finally stopped talking, Dr. Chen leaned forward slightly. "Lauren, what you're describing is financial abuse," she said gently. "It's real, it's valid, and it's not your fault." "I feel so stupid," I admitted. "How did I not see it?" "Because it started small," she explained. "Because you cared about him. Because they made it seem like you were helping, not being taken advantage of. Financial abuse often hides behind love and obligation. And excluding me from the trip while using my money, that's emotional abuse," I said quietly. "Yes," she confirmed. "They accepted your financial support while isolating you. They made you feel like an outsider while benefiting from your inclusion." Her validation hit hard. Someone objective, someone trained finally saw what they had done. "I've started separating my finances," I told her. "Opened my own account." "That's a big step," Dr. Chen said. "How does it feel?" "Terrifying," I admitted. "And freeing." We spoke for the full hour. Before leaving, I booked sessions for the next month. The $2,800 I'd saved by not sending it to Nancy would now fund my therapy. Thursday and Friday, I spent my breaks at work scrolling through apartment listings. Most near the hospital were too pricey or unsafe. But Friday afternoon, I found one, a one-bedroom in a converted Catholic school. Clean, quiet, and just 10 minutes away. I called immediately. The landlord, Mrs. Patterson, sounded kind. "Can you come by tomorrow at 10?" she asked. Saturday, I told Henry I'd picked up an extra shift. Instead, I drove to see the apartment. Mrs. Patterson, a woman in her 70s with silver hair and kind eyes, greeted me outside. "You're the nurse from St. Mary's?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," I said. She led me upstairs to a corner unit. Morning light poured through the tall windows. The old hardwood floors were worn but clean. The kitchen had a gas stove, and the bathroom had a clawfoot tub. "I was a nurse too," she said softly. "Retired 5 years ago. I know that look. You need a fresh start." "Is it that obvious?" I asked. "Only to someone who's been there," she said, handing me the application. "Take your time. If you want it today, it's yours." I filled it out using my maiden name, Lauren Mitchell. It felt like reclaiming my real identity. "When can I move in?" I asked, handing her the forms and the deposit from my new account. "Whenever you're ready," she said, passing me the keys. Sometimes the best time to start over is right now. At night, Henry left for his monthly poker game with Jake and their friends. The moment his car pulled away, I began packing. I moved quietly and deliberately, taking only what was mine before the marriage, or essential. My nursing books, clothes, coffee maker, and my grandmother's jewelry box. Everything else stayed behind. The wedding china, the photos, 7 years of shared belongings. At the kitchen table, I laid out the bank statements, 3 years of transactions, and placed my wedding ring beside them. The small diamond caught the light as I set down a handwritten note. "I've withdrawn my funding and myself from this arrangement. Your family can support you now." By the time Henry came home at midnight, I was in my new apartment, sitting on the floor with just a sleeping bag and a deep sense of freedom. The first voicemail came Tuesday morning while I was on shift. It was from Nancy. "Lauren, honey, it's Mom," she began, her tone falsely sweet. "There must be some confusion at the bank. The transfer didn't go through. Could you check on that?" Wednesday brought another. "Lauren, the mortgage company called. This is serious. We need that payment today." By Thursday, her tone had hardened. "How could you do this to family? After everything we've done for you, we could lose the house." I listened to each message once, then deleted them. No guilt, no hesitation. Just quiet satisfaction. "You look different," Beth said during shift change that night. "Better, more rested." "Finally getting enough sleep," I replied. And it was true. In my new apartment, I slept soundly. No snoring, no financial anxiety, no invisible weight. By Friday, Melissa made her move online. A photo of the lake house appeared on her Instagram, sunlight gleaming on the for sale sign. Her caption read, "Thanks to some people's selfishness, our childhood home is being sold. 30 years of family memories gone." The comments were brutal. Strangers and relatives alike called me heartless and greedy, which was ironic considering I'd been the one giving, not taking. Then Susan, my coworker from the night shift, commented, "Maybe if you treated her like family instead of an ATM, she'd still be helping. Just a thought." Her single sentence silenced the entire thread. Melissa deleted her post within minutes, but not before Susan screenshotted it. By the end of my shift, half the nursing staff had seen the exchange. They'd quietly taken my side, women who understood exhaustion, sacrifice, and being taken for granted. The audacity, Beth said, shaking her head, posting that after taking your money for years. Saturday morning, Henry began his campaign. The first email came at 6 a.m., 3 pages, single-spaced, detailing our relationship history and why I was making a mistake. I deleted it after the first paragraph. Next came the flowers. 24 roses delivered to the hospital reception desk with a card that read, "Please come home. We can work this out." #H Maria, the receptionist who'd heard the whole story through the grapevine, gave me a look. "Want me to donate these to the cardiac ward?" she asked. "Perfect," I said. "The patients will appreciate them more than I do." Sunday, he escalated. As I left through the employee exit, I saw him waiting by my car. He looked exhausted, unshaven, wrinkled, desperate. "Lauren, please, just 5 minutes. Move away from my car, Henry. We need to talk about us." "There is no us," I said evenly. "There's you and your family, and me and my self-respect. 2 very different things." "That's not fair," he said. "Fair?" I laughed without humor. Fair would have been inviting me to the vacation I paid for. Fair would have been honesty about our money. Fair would have been treating me like a wife, not a bank. When he stepped in front of my car door, Officer Johnson appeared. Hospital security had apparently been watching from inside. "Sir, you need to leave hospital property," he said, his hand resting on his radio. "Your wife has asked you to move away. Let's go." As Johnson escorted him off the lot, Henry called back, "This isn't over, Lauren. We're married." "Not for much longer," I replied, getting into my car. By the time I went inside to clock out, the evening nurses had witnessed everything through the break room window. They gave me a quiet round of applause. Dr. Martinez appeared with a coffee. "You okay, Mitchell?" he asked, using my maiden name without being told. "Better than okay," I said. "Free." Monday, Henry tried a new approach. Jake lost his bike, had to sell his jackets too. He loved those jackets. "Hope you're happy." Jake, who hadn't worked in 2 years and spent his days riding a motorcycle Nancy bought with my money, had finally faced consequences. I took a photo of my new scrubs, the first I'd bought in years, and sent it back. "I love being able to afford work clothes. Funny how that works." He didn't reply. Through hospital gossip, I learned the rest. Jake had taken a warehouse job, his first in years. The lake house had several offers, all below asking price, since it needed costly repairs. Henry had moved back in with his parents, officially to help, though I suspected it was because he couldn't afford our apartment alone. Nancy left one last voicemail that week. "I hope you can live with yourself for destroying a family. We welcomed you, and this is how you repay us." I saved that one, not out of guilt, but as a reminder. They'd welcomed my money, not me. And now they were finally learning the difference. As I packed for a trip I'd planned for weeks, I listened to her voicemail one final time before deleting it. 2 months of saving my own income had bought me something I'd only dreamed of, a solo trip to Sedona. The Red Rocks had fascinated me since nursing school, when a classmate showed photos from her trip. I'd promised myself I'd go one day when I could afford it. Turns out, I always could. I'd just been giving my money to people who wouldn't even invite me to dinner. My flight was early morning, cheaper that way. I didn't mind the middle seat or the crying baby 2 rows back. For once, I was flying toward something, not running from something. Sedona in October was perfect. Warm days, cool nights, golden light that made the red rocks glow. My hotel was modest but peaceful, with a view of Thunder Mountain from the window. That first evening, I sat on the balcony with tea, watching the sunset wash the cliffs in colors I couldn't name. The next morning, I began the Cathedral Rock Trail at sunrise. It was steeper than I'd expected, demanding real effort. My legs burned, my breath came hard, but I kept going. This wasn't a race, it was a personal climb. Halfway up, resting on a ledge, my phone buzzed. I'd forgotten airplane mode. The notification was an email from Nancy. The subject line read, "The truth about Lauren Mitchell." I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. I opened it as the sun warmed the stone beneath me. 3 paragraphs of venom, claims that I'd ruined their family, manipulated Henry, and abandoned them when they needed me most. She described their financial troubles, the sold lake house, Jake's repossessed motorcycle, and their suffering, all blamed on my decision to stop funding their lives. The email went out to 43 people, relatives, church friends, even a few of Henry's coworkers. She hadn't even bothered with the courtesy of BCC. Every name was there in full view. I sat on that red rock overlooking the valley, feeling nothing, not anger, not sadness, just an odd sense of calm, like watching a storm pass without being touched by the rain. I hit reply all. My message was brief, factual, and final. I contributed $100,800 over 3 years while being excluded from family events. I was told the annual lake trip was canceled due to financial issues, only to later see photos of everyone there without me. You're not struggling because I stopped contributing. You're struggling because you never learned to live within your means. I wish you well in your new circumstances. Please remove me from future communications. I pressed send and turned off my phone completely. The rest of the hike felt like meditation, just me, the rocks, and the vast Arizona sky. At the summit, sitting among other hikers, I felt more at peace than I had in years. A woman around my age sat nearby, also alone, quietly taking in the view. "First time?" she asked. "Yes, you?" She said. "I come after every major life change. Divorce, career shift, now retirement. These rocks have seen it all." We sat in easy silence, 2 strangers who understood that some paths must be walked alone. By the time I returned home 3 days later, the lake house had gone to auction. Melissa, of course, documented everything on social media, the for sale sign, open house visitors, and finally a photo of herself on the dock captioned, "Goodbye to childhood memories." Some people know the price of everything and the value of nothing. I was at work when the auction took place, steadying my hands as I inserted an IV into an elderly man's fragile veins. His daughter, standing nearby, looked anxious and familiar. She'd been following Melissa's posts. "You're the nurse from Instagram, right?" she asked quietly. I kept my focus on my patient, calm and professional. "My ex-husband's family did the same thing," she said softly. "Took and took, then called me selfish when I stopped giving. You're brave." "Just practical," I replied, securing the IV. "Your father's going to be fine. This medication will help with the pain." As I held her father's hand, I realized something. These hospital halls, my patients, my coworkers, this was my real family. People who valued my skills, my compassion, my presence, not my money. 2 weeks later, the divorce papers were finalized. My lawyer, whom I paid myself, kept it simple. No fault divorce, no alimony, just a clean break. Henry was served at his parents' rental apartment. The process server later said he looked like he'd aged 5 years in 5 months. Rumpled clothes, hollow eyes, the look of a man whose comfort had crumbled. He called me immediately. "Lauren, please, we can fix this. Come over, let's talk." "There's nothing to discuss," I said. "Sign the papers. I made mistakes. You made choices. Mine was to stop funding people who excluded me. Sign them, Henry." The server mentioned that Nancy had been watching through the window, her face pressed against the glass, like a child staring at a candy store she couldn't afford to enter. 2 days later, the signed documents arrived. Henry had signed every page, his handwriting shakier each time. 6 months after I left, a Thanksgiving invitation arrived at my new apartment. Fancy cardstock, likely bought before their financial troubles. Nancy had written in perfect cursive, "Despite everything, you're still family. Please join us for Thanksgiving dinner." The return address was their rental apartment, not the lake house. The dinner would be in a cramped room instead of overlooking the lake, with a store-bought turkey replacing the organic one they once prided themselves on. I was scheduled to work that Thanksgiving anyway. Holiday pay was good, and the hospital needed staff. But even if I hadn't been, my response would have been the same. I mailed the invitation back with a single line written across it. "Family doesn't require payment for admission." Then I blocked every number: Henry's, Nancy's, Jake's, Melissa's, even the cousins who'd called me heartless. One by one, I erased them from my phone, my life, my future. That Thanksgiving night, I worked my shift feeling lighter than ever. The ER was busy, as it always was during the holidays, but I moved through the chaos with calm clarity. No buzzing phone, no guilt, no financial drain, just my work, my patience, and the quiet freedom of no longer being tied to people who drained me. "Mitchell, want some turkey?" Dr. Martinez asked, holding out a plate from the break room spread. The hospital always took care of its holiday staff. "Thanks," I said, accepting it. Real turkey, real stuffing, real belonging. No one here expected payment to be included. The months that followed passed easily. Winter turned to spring, then summer. I learned to cook for one without feeling lonely. My apartment filled with plants, a snake plant by the window, ivy trailing from a shelf, a peace lily that bloomed in July. They thrived in the sunlight, streaming through windows that actually opened. And for the first time in years, my bank account grew, slowly, steadily. Without $2,800 vanishing each month, and with a promotion to shift supervisor 6 months after leaving Henry, I finally had enough. Enough for repairs, for comfort, and most importantly, for peace. Enough for new work shoes without guilt. Enough for the occasional nice dinner without triple-checking the price. In August, the hospital newsletter editor approached me. "We're running a series on financial wellness for healthcare workers. Would you consider writing something?" I wrote about recognizing financial abuse without naming names. I explained how it starts small, framed as temporary help, how it grows through repeated family emergencies, how it hides behind love, duty, and guilt, and how it finally ends when you start valuing yourself more than their approval. The response was overwhelming. Colleagues I'd known for years quietly pulled me aside. "This happened to me too. My ex-wife's family did the same thing. I'm still in it. How did you get out?" That's how our informal support group began, Thursday evenings at my apartment with tea and honest conversation. We called it Financial Boundaries for Caregivers. We realized that nurses were particularly vulnerable to this kind of manipulation. We were trained to help, to give, to sacrifice, and that made us easy targets for financial exploitation. One Thursday in September, exactly a year after that phone call in the supply closet, I received a handwritten letter, no return address, but I recognized Henry's handwriting immediately. I almost threw it away, but curiosity won. The writing was smaller, more careful, like each word had been measured. "Lauren, I'm writing this from my small studio apartment, the one I can actually afford with the 2 jobs I'm working now. Funny how I never understood work until I had to do it myself. I see now what we took from you. Not just money, but dignity, respect, belonging. We made you pay for the privilege of being excluded, and I let it happen. Worse, I orchestrated it. Mom still blames you. Melissa posts about family loyalty. Jake complains about his warehouse job. They don't get it, but I do now. We weren't a family. We were parasites, and I was the worst one because I was supposed to love you. I don't expect forgiveness or anything in return. I just wanted you to know that someone from that mess finally understands. What we did was wrong. It was cruel. And you deserved far better, Henry. I read it once, sitting at my small dining table with a cup of coffee. I felt a brief sadness for the marriage that might have been, if this honesty had come sooner. Then I filed the letter away in a box labeled past and went on with my day. 2 months later, Mrs. Patterson knocked on my door. "Did you see the obituary? Nancy passed away. Heart attack. 67. The funeral was scheduled for Saturday at the Laketown Church, the one they attended back when they still had the lake house. I didn't go. 3 weeks later, a certified letter arrived from a law firm. Nancy's will, written years ago, back when they still had money and I was the perfect daughter-in-law, had never been updated. She'd left me her jewelry collection. Melissa contested it immediately, of course, but the will was solid, written back when Nancy still played the role of the generous matriarch, probably thinking the jewelry would keep me grateful and compliant. The irony was undeniable. She had unknowingly given me one last payment from beyond the grave. The pieces were appraised at $15,000. Real gold, quality stones, the kind she'd worn to family gatherings I was never invited to. Bought with money I'd helped provide. I sold every piece to a downtown dealer and drove straight to the women's shelter on Maple Street. The director, a weary but kind woman named Patricia, looked at the cashier's check in surprise. "This is incredibly generous. Would you like to name the donation for our records?" "Call it the Family Fund," I said, "for women finding their real families after losing fake ones." She looked at me with quiet understanding. The Family Fund it is. Today marks 2 years since that Instagram video. 2 years since everything changed. I volunteered for the sunrise shift, wanting to mark the day with work that mattered. The drive at 5 a.m. was peaceful. Empty streets, classical music on the radio, good coffee in my travel mug. The sky slowly shifted from gray to peach and gold. My phone stayed silent. No urgent messages, no guilt-ridden calls, no manipulative invitations. Just quiet. I parked in my reserved spot, one of the small perks of being a supervisor, and walked toward the employee entrance. The automatic door slid open with its familiar whoosh, almost like the building was welcoming me home. If this story of financial betrayal and self-reclamation moved you, hit that like button right now. My favorite moment was when Lauren finally replied, "Ask your family," after uncovering the truth about the lake house. What was your favorite moment of justice? Tell us in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more empowering stories like this one.